He turned water into wine, I turned whiskey into songs. Too many second chances, too many too far gones. Gave me grace along the way, took my heart and led me home. Don't you see? It's a God thing for me. Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.
Welcome to the Heartland Journal podcast with Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back. I'm Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. On this show, we are focused on our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community and our lovers of truth. Today, we are talking with special guest Dr. Ealy. Dr. Henry Ealy, known to many as Dr. H, is a teacher, visionary, and healer, and the founder of the Energetic Health Institute, where he says healing happens. He is sounding the alarm after new lab results he shared revealed what he describes as jaw-dropping levels of aluminum and barium appearing in human sweat following days of heavy atmospheric spraying. According to Dr. Ealy, no R, by the way, E-A-L-Y, Ealy, his team has been analyzing sweat samples collected after infrared sauna sessions. He reports that on days with no visible atmospheric spraying, aluminum levels in sweat measures about 281 nanograms per gram. But after what he describes as a quote-unquote heavy chemical day, aluminum levels allegedly surged to 2,958 nanograms per gram, a tenfold increase. Dr. Ealy claims this pattern suggests that nanoparticles of aluminum and other metals are entering the human body through inhalation and being excreted through the skin. He also reports elevated levels of barium, nickel, tin, lead, and cesium in post-exposure samples. He's the author of Energetic Health Volume 1, The Book of Questions, and the Philosophy of Healing, and he spent more than 2 decades developing innovative curricula in holistic nutrition, cleansing and fasting, vaccine education, and natural recovery protocols. His mission is simple: to help people become the healers they were born to be. Let's talk to the good doctor and see if I'm still batting 1,000 on all my conspiracy theories, because they all have come true. Hello, doctor. How are you today?
Steve, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Where are you today?
I am in the desert, the hottest place in America, unless you're standing next to an AI surveillance center. But it's pretty hot here and right on the outskirts of Phoenix.
Or on the roof of one, right? Yeah, Phoenix. Lovely Phoenix. I was just there for graduation. So yes, I know. And it was hot. So next month, we both, I'm in Tennessee, you're in Arizona, all 50 states, we celebrate 250 years of America, greatest country on earth, born out of liberty. Nobody else even tried that. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So let's get weird for a second here. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Using Arctic ice core samples, researchers estimate silver mining and smelting released enough lead during the Pax Romana to cause a 2.5 to 3-point drop in IQ. California, the NIH, and a federal court has ruled that current fluoride levels in the U.S. drinking water poses an unreasonable risk of reduced IQ in children, just like the Romans, about 2 points. Same as Rome. We've been adding it since the 70s. Is fluoride the new lead?
Fluoride is definitely on that level, and something we have to be very concerned about. My first contact with this thought came in out of a book by Paul Pitchford called Healing with Whole Foods. Great book, still in print and everything. But he brought up this very interesting topic. He brought up the very interesting topic of it being a waste product of aluminum production. Now, we know today not all fluoride sources are from aluminum production, but we also know that some still are. So that means that you're dealing with aluminum exposure as well. And one of the things that gets very interesting about aluminum exposure, a quick Google search, especially if you go to like Google Scholar or something, will show you roughly about 450,000 peer-reviewed papers showing the connection between aluminum and the breakdown out of mental cognition, but also Parkinson's and more the advanced neurodegenerative kind of diseases. So it's not just about IQ loss. IQ loss is going to be that first kind of warning sign that something's going wrong, that something's going wrong. But why is it a warning sign? Because our bodies run on electricity, specifically direct current electricity. Easy to prove. I have a multimeter right here. I'm happy to prove these kind of things. When you bring things like fluoride into the body, and when you look at it on an electrical level, one of the things that fluoride does is fluoride is going to bind magnesium specifically. When you bind magnesium, what you're doing is you are preventing your body from making energy.
Ugh.
And so there's a fatigue and a drop off. And what is our brain using? Tons of energy to keep it going. So there's that connection for the drop off. But because the fluoride that's in the water may also have waste of aluminum production or aluminum in the process as well, what you're also doing is bringing something into the body that's going to act like as if you stuck a fork in a light socket. You are going to short circuit your body's electrical potential as well. So there's a myriad of problems that come along with the introduction of fluoride in. There is absolutely no proof. You can go to the Weston A. Price Foundation on this. They've done, I think, the best job of documenting this issue. There is absolutely no proof that fluoride is going to help preserve teeth or preserve the enamel. And that's where I go to the dentists who say that kind of nonsense. Please show me where fluoride fits in the biochemical makeup of enamel. You don't find it. So that's a complete farce right there. It was just a way to get that in. And one of the things that Paul Pitchford said in his book, Healing with Whole Foods, which starts me on a rabbit, you go down these rabbit holes and stuff, is the connection between what we are doing and we started doing in the 50s. Specifically, we started fluoridation in 1951. This comes on the heels of the the Clean Water Pollution Act. I forget the exact name of it, of 1947. But what gets interesting, Steve, is that comes on the heels of Operation Paperclip.
Mm.
And for those who know even a little bit about Operation Paperclip, this is where we brought those Nazi scientists in. And what were the Nazi scientists studying? Well, among many other things, they were studying how to elicit mind control over vast populations of conquered people that would be attempting to rebel. So what did Hitler's minions come up with? The best thing that you could do is pose as a philanthropist, try to win over some of them, build what are called water treatment facilities in those countries. So an act of generosity. And now you can put things like Zyklon B and other substances like fluoride in the water and wipe out any rebellion whenever you need to.
Oh dear.
I don't see it as an accident that we bring the Alan Dulles brings those Nazi scientists, over 1,600 of them. And if you listen to Vera Shiraz, she's saying, and some of her authors say it's closer to about 5,000, 5,400 that were brought over, put into all of these dark ops, areas within the government, right? And then magically, a couple years later, you get the seizure of all of the waterways by the government, because that's what the Clean Water Act was about doing. It's not an accident then that within a couple of years, the first exploration is we're going to build water treatment facilities and we're going to fluoridate them because they're going to help keep your children healthy. That's what they had learned. So it's a very interesting history on this whole
Yeah,
fluoridation
but it's a
issue.
great framing of what we're about to talk about, because we're going to
But
fast
get
forward
it
to
out. Yeah,
2026. Yeah, so
exactly.
it all built upon this. So intake of lead by the aristocracy may have been as much as 1 milligram per day.
Right,
Lead poisoning caused the Roman civilization to collapse around 476 current era.
right.
The result, mental incompetence, and especially the rapidly declining birth rate, sound familiar, among the
Yeah.
ruling class are now believed to have been major factors in the decline of the Roman Empire. Are we doing something similar today? You say, quote unquote, heavy chemtrail day, aluminum levels allegedly surging to 2,958 nanograms per gram. That's a 10 times increase to no spray days. Are we moving from drinking water to air we breathe?
In my opinion, yes, even though they're still doing those same things with water. These are still concerns that we still haven't overcome with the water. What happens with the chemtrails, when you see a straight cloud, the one thing I get across to Americans and people all around the world is this: God does not build in straight lines. That's not how nature really, really works. So when you see a straight cloud that doesn't disappear, that's the most easy way to realize that's a man-made cloud. There's actually a category of these called cumulus homogeneous, meaning man-made. And next question becomes, well, what's in these clouds, right? Well, we have to credit Dane Wigington and Geoengineering Watch on this. They were the first team in the world to actually fly a plane into one of those clouds and with a probe to be able to capture samples and take it back to an electron microscope and see what was in there. And what did Dane's team find? Aluminum, barium, and strontium. Aluminum and barium being far more than strontium, and aluminum being far more than barium. So you have to start putting this kind of together. You go, okay, that's very interesting. What's also interesting is that when you start going through some of the World Health Organization and some of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and some of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you start seeing in the late 2008 to 2013, you start seeing an investment that they're making in what are called genetically modified crops, but specifically for this, to be resistant to aluminum, because aluminum does something interesting in terms of a plant's physiology. What aluminum is going to do is aluminum is going to stunt root growth. So you have to then create crops that are going to be able to grow in that really harsh condition. Well, why would you need to do that unless you were constantly spraying things from above? And then it brings you to another thought. Well, why are they spraying anything from above? It could be easier just to spray it, from the ground if that's what is the goal. That's not really the goal. You see, the goal, in my opinion, is to move the jet stream. Because when you can move the jet stream north or you can move a jet stream south, what happens is now you're controlling where there is going to be water. And of course, we know wherever there is water, there is life. Or wherever there is the absence of water, like where I live, there is a desert and things dry up and land becomes unproductive. So what's happening with this is that you see with 5G, you see with the cell towers, you see with NextRad, you see with these things, you'll see these things turn on. And when they turn on, you'll see them be able to push with their EMFs, they'll be able to push the jet stream north or south. And when you can control the weather like that, and takes you right into Kissinger and some of those cronies and what they were talking about, when you can push the jet stream north or south, you can determine where there's going to be a flood, you can determine where there's going to be a drought. And when you can determine those things and with specificity, what you end up doing is you end up controlling the population yet on a whole nother level. One of the other benefits of that process is, well, now we have another opportunity to make money on a new type of genetically modified crop, something that's resistant to aluminum. So we get to make even more money off of attempting to kill people, in my opinion.
Wow.
Right. So it gets a little crazy when
It
you get
does.
into it.
I mean, 1 milligram is 1 million nanograms. So 3 milligrams per day is 3 times the fall of Rome. That's what you're talking about up there.
You're nailing it right now. And it's one of these things that you get into this thing, Steve, where you listen to these people long enough, and what are they always searching for? Plausible deniability. Where it's like, oh, that's so small, that wouldn't do anything. Well, little things do a lot in the body, because when you introduce aluminum into the body, which we've proven, when you introduce aluminum to the body, you are short-circuiting the body's ability to perform electrically. And the proof of that is fatigue. The proof of that is a myriad of diseases. But the proof of that also are things that you're bringing up, which is brilliant. The drop in IQ. And then it starts explaining to us why we feel people are dumber today than they were 30, 40 years ago. Well, look at the cellular terrain. If the cellular terrain is polluted with all these short-circuiting elements, and throw in a little glyphosate, throw a couple frequencies, spend a little bit too much time on social media, and now you get this wonderful cocktail of dumb. And then what do you need? Now it ushers in the AI. Oh, well, we'll help you from that. We'll let you just ask AI anything. And then once you ask AI anything, well, AI is right, because AI is the new intelligent God, which
Hmm.
is preposterous when you get down to it.
So how can my audience get tested or test the soil in their garden?
The testing of the garden, I don't know about. The testing of the body, I do. The testing of the garden, I would say I'm sure there's some simple soil tests out there just for content. We've seen enough farmers out there warning us for the last couple of years about the increase in their content of aluminum in their soil. So I'm sure on the market, simple search, you'll find some tests that you can do a soil sample and send it off to a lab. One of the things that was really concerning for me was also when you get into predictive programming and looking at the movie Interstellar, because Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey predicts all of this stuff happening at some point. That's why he's got to go on this interstellar journey because Earth is no longer producing crops to feed the people. Okay, well, if you put enough aluminum and if you allocate enough aluminum into a concentrated area, because people will argue with me and go, well, there's already aluminum in the soil. And be like, yeah, you're correct. There's already aluminum in the soil. It's just, it's getting concentrated and especially in the topsoil. So that's going to throw off the mycorrhiza. That's going to throw off root and stunt root growth. There's just so many complications that it's going to actually feed fungus and fungus overgrowth in our crops and our fields. And that's actually the largest source of crop loss in the world, reported by the World Health Organization, is fungal infection. Well, why would that be? If the soil is all filled with the topsoil is all filled with aluminum, then yeah, that's what you're going to get. It's the only thing that can really grow on there is fungus, right?
Wow.
So yeah, so anyway, that's where you go with this, and it's just a fascinating conversation. But I think for me, what I try to get into, Steve, is how do we help people test it in their body
Yeah.
so that they can know, okay, am I getting this out? And so that's where I have some sweat tests, urine tests. We've done hair samples, the things that we know give us that really good marker for, is this moving in the right direction or is the trend going in the wrong direction? I'm accumulating too much aluminum in my system.
We'll talk more about that in a minute. So, still curious though, barium,
Hmm.
nickel, and lead. Why
Hmm.
would they waste barium and nickel by spraying it and dispersing it? Can't we find a better use for it, like paint, bricks, ceramic, glass, rubber?
I would say yes, we can find a better use for everything that they're using for ill intent. You know, one of the things that was shocking for me when I was doing some heavy metal testing is I've never done a barium swallow. I've never gone and got imaged for anything. So my exposure to barium should be really zero. So I had to start explaining where I was being exposed to barium. And before we looked at chemtrails, I was looking at seafood because I would eat a decent amount of wild caught seafood. So I'm just, with seafood, we're supposed to be more concerned about microplastics and nanoplastics. And we fortunately have solutions for that now. But I was just like, where is this barium coming from? And then I watched the Dimming, Dane Wigington's documentary. It's available free on most platforms. And it was like, whoa, that's something that could be a source. And so that's when we did the test. We were like, okay, well, let's do a test. There's 6 consecutive days, no chemtrails in the sky. Let's do a sweat test and see what comes out. Let's do a urine test, see what comes out. And then the day after a chemtrail, big spray day, we did the same test. We repeated the same test. And the results, I wasn't expecting, Steve, I wasn't expecting to find anything. I do some testing a lot where I'm like, it's probably going to be nothing, but let's check anyway and see. And it was jaw dropping, the difference. And so I was like, okay, well, you do a test one time, that doesn't mean anything, it could be anything. So we repeated the test and same variables. And what did we see? The exact same thing. And
One
so
day after
just
spray.
one day after a spray. So you can imagine the people where they're under, I have people hitting me up all the time and they're like, I haven't had a clear day in 3, 4 weeks,
Right? You go
you
out
know.
jogging, thinking you're getting fresh air, go hiking, and
Nope.
it's one day, and it's could be 20 days.
Hmm. Yeah, and so now you're talking, you take it back to the Roman Empire, the fall of the Roman Empire, right? And yeah, well, if you poison your people and you make them infertile and insane, your empire is going to fall.
Yeah. The
That's how it
barbarians
works.
at the gate seemed like normal people at that point. So
Right.
what role is sugar playing in chemtrail recovery?
Very good question. And just to clarify, we're talking about refined concentrated sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we're talking about refined concentrated sugar, you have to understand, what does sugar feed? Well, we know sugar feeds cancer cells, but why would it feed a cancer cell? The same reason why an ivermectin or a Fenbin would work. Um, it works in those situations where there's cancer because those cancerous cells are due to infections in the body. So when you are taking in sugar, you're feeding infections. Well, what happens if one of those infections is a fungal infection? Why would there be a fungal infection in the body? Well, maybe because your body has bioaccumulated a whole bunch of aluminum in it, a whole bunch of a short circuiting metal that the body is not having a hard time clearing, but that is still present. So where that takes us to is a simple thing like this. We've had people come in with fungal and yeast. I would group those very similarly. Fungal yeast infections, that chronic kind of yeast infection, chronic, uh, athlete's foot, chronic kind of for women, yeast infections, things like that. When I see those things now, I don't look at them the same way I did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you're thinking, oh, a little too much sugar. Now I think definitely too much sugar feeding the infection, but it also makes me go, that's aluminum buildup.
Mm.
That's you've breathed that in. You've created the cellular terrain hospitable for the infection to be able to prosper in your body. And then you're feeding it with the sugar. So it's now we have another variable we have to strongly consider.
So aluminum and mercury, they've been
Mhm.
recalled now, they say, but was used in vaccines for infants. It jumps the blood-brain barrier. We know this, and it might cause autism. We don't know.
Mhm.
I think I know, but we don't know. The aluminum salts in some FDA-approved vaccines are aluminum hydroxide, aluminum phosphate, alum, which is potassium aluminum sulfate, or mixed aluminum salts. What
Mhm.
are your thoughts on all of the uses of aluminum in vaccines when they should be none?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say one of the hard things to do is to get that media and excipient summary that you're referring to right now. It's the CDC used to publish up until November of 2024. They used to publish in their Pink Book Appendix B a list of all of the vaccines with all of the ingredients. You can't get that anymore. It's not available every time I've checked since on the HHS's website anymore. Here's a great book that just published. It's called Confessions of a Pro-Vaccine Dad by Adam Rowland. It's on Amazon right now. But in the back of the book, he has several years of these median excipient summaries. So you can see the vaccine and you can see what's in it. What I think of that, Steve, is when one of my big things is I always ask these doctors who are so pro vaccine, tell me how it works. Just give me the mechanism of action. I'm a pretty objective person. I change my mind in the presence of new information. I want to know what's the best thing to do. So tell me how it works. And they say, well, it's just safe and effective. I said, okay, that's a sales line. That's not a, that's not telling me how it works. Tell me how it works. Like, talk to me about the cell receptors. Talk to me about your immune system. Talk to me what's going on within the body once this is injected. They can't answer it for the most part. So I say, okay, let's just stop. Let's go back. Let's go back and look at the ingredients. Let's look at ingredient by ingredient. You tell me how it confers immunity to the human body. And so we go ingredient by ingredient. There's those cell salts. There's the not cell salts, but the aluminum salts. We look at those. We look at the dyes that are in there. We look at the acetone. We look at the MHC5 and the WI38 cell lines. We look at the formaldehyde that's in there. And I go through ingredient by ingredient with them. Tell me how it confers immunity. Well, it doesn't. That one doesn't. That one doesn't. That one doesn't. That one doesn't. If none of the ingredients can confer immunity, how can you say it's effective? We don't even need to talk about safety yet, but just how is it effective? It's not. It can't be. But then we get into the next conversation. Tell me why. Tell me why aluminum salt is in this. And tell me why we are allowing for mercury to be added after production to any vaccine. This is a little clause in the writings. Mercury can be added to any vaccine as a preservative without needing to be labeled on the list of ingredients. So you never know. So if you want to find out, well, how does this work? You have to actually go to a team in Italy. They're called Corvella. And it's a bunch of scientists, and this was years ago. It's about a decade ago now, maybe a little bit over, where they actually got random bottles and analyzed them in a lab themselves. And what did they find? Oh my God, nothing that was said to be in really the vials was in there, except in high concentration in terms of these heavy metals and how they were delivered. So they were aghast. They published a beautiful paper on it. Years later, Moms Across America, Zen Honeycutt, follows up and she's checking for glyphosate residue in the shots. And guess what she found? You can go to Moms Across America and read the study. She found that there's glyphosate residue in these. That's not on the label. How did that get in there? You know what I mean? And so we have to understand that when you inject something in the body, you are bypassing the immune system. The immune system, at least 70% of it, is going to be associated with your digestive tract. So if they inject it into you, you're bypassing it, giving whatever was injected an opportunity to promote itself throughout the body until an immune response can be generated. It's a very dangerous thing when you're talking about any human, but especially when you're talking about a child. And that's where I get very concerned about it because there is no evidence to support a child needing even one shot. And if you go through and read a great book by Dr. Paul Thomas, who just published it, The Vax Facts, a wonderful book that follows up so that you can get yourself educated to feel very confident about questioning the veracity and the necessity of vaccinations as a whole.
Quite horrifying, actually. We have way too much faith in the medical establishment, I guess. And there are claims that high dose boron may help displace aluminum from tissue, described. I think it's an ongoing experiment that you are taking with about 120 milligrams per day, if that's accurate, to test its effect on metal excretion. Is boron the best way to get this stuff out of us?
There's two ways that we've proven to get this out, and thank you for bringing that up because we need to be very clear with everybody. One, everything that we're sharing here is for educational purposes only.
Right.
Number one, and number two, when we talk about very ultra high dosing of specific nutrients like boron, we have to appreciate that that's for a short period of time. So this experiment I did on myself with it and repeated was for 5 consecutive days. That's it. Okay. Because that is a very, like I said, ultra high dose of it. You don't want to keep pumping that in. Again, when I did that experiment, Steve, I thought it wouldn't work, but I was like, electrically, this is supposed to work because boron and aluminum are in the same electrical family. And if we are relying on the divine intelligence of the human body, that means if we present the human body with two things, it's going to choose the better thing. We've seen this happen. We see this happen beautifully when we're talking about the swapping of trans fatty acids for like omega-3 cis configuration fatty acids and stuff like that. The body just seems to know, and it will always choose the better thing, which is amazing when you get down to it and can put us into a whole nother discussion. So I got a baseline on how much aluminum was coming out. And I've been very well trained in chelation and everything from my mentor, Dr. Walter Crinian. And when when we tested it, I was like, this isn't going to work. If my mentor was still alive, he'd probably laugh at me for even trying this, but let's see what happens. What blew me away was when we did this test for my body weight dose, 120 milligrams for 5 straight days, we were able to increase aluminum excretion by about 400%. So very significant, which is very much in alignment with any synthetic chelating agent we could have used to provoke it out of the cell. So that was mind blowing, and I was feeling things happening that were mimicking what I am comfortable with feeling during a traditional kind of chelation with synthetics. But this was like, whoa, this is really, really cool. So we proved that you can do it with high dose boron. We also will say that needs to be done under supervision. And that's something we do is we teach people how to do it at the Energetic Health Institute, we have a program called energetic cleansing and fasting that we take people through, because I'm like, these aren't things you should listen to on an interview or watch on a little clip on social media and go, okay, I'm going to go try that. Not that. This is a different level of natural medicine.
Yeah.
Don't
Still
play around with it.
experimental stage, and
Right.
do you have to do this under the guise of a doctor or the advice of a doctor?
Some
Um,
kind of somebody needs to be watching
right,
what's going
right.
on.
Don't go buy it at the local hardware store and dose it.
Right.
That'd be bad.
Right.
Thimerosal. I think I said that wrong, but that's how it reads.
Hmm.
Approximately 50% mercury by weight
Right.
has been on the most widely used preservatives in vaccines. They
Mhm.
say it's safe. Now, can mercury injected be considered safe?
Okay. Well, to answer that question, what happens? Remember the old mercury thermometers,
Yeah, it's
right? You
like
remember
the
what would happen?
Terminator movie where it kind of
I
liquid metal. Yeah.
exactly right, where it like absorbed back into him and everything. Remember what we would do, and do you remember how people would freak out when they would accidentally break a
Oh yeah.
mercury thermometer? What
Hazmat
did
team
everyone
would come
say?
out. Yeah.
You gotta have hazmat come out, and they're all suited up and they have to use special devices to get this safely out of the house, right? Because mercury, if you just leave it there, it's going to eventually evaporate and you're going to be breathing that in. It's going to be something that you're breathing in. So this is the great lengths people went to whenever a thermometer broke. So why would we think that putting it in a syringe makes it magically safe to do so? That doesn't make any sense, especially when you understand the affinity that mercury has for the brain and for the nervous system. There is a great video all over on YouTube by the University of Calgary. It's from 1991. This is how long we've known this. It's called Mercury and Neurodegeneration. And what they show conclusively is they have in a petri dish um, uh, neurofibers. I think it was from a snail was what they did, but they showed neurofibers in a under a microscope in a petri dish, and they introduced different elements at the same concentration. They did aluminum was one of them, but it was at a very low concentration. And they put a little bit of touch of mercury in there, and you can just see the neurofibrils, the neuron just completely break down in a matter of seconds. And so when you start seeing that kind of stuff, you go, okay, why do we have mercury in the silver fillings? Why are we injecting children with mercury? Why isn't mercury outlawed for use? And how in the world could the FDA still consider it a preservative? Preservative of what? These are ridiculous things. These are offensive if you allow yourself to be gaslit and offended. These are offensive to intellect, to people who have an objective, reasonable mind, like you clearly have. So for me, I look at that stuff from Mercury and I'm
Which is
like,
weird because I grew up in California drinking that water. So I don't know how I got that mind, but I got out of there at the right time, I guess.
you left the day before, okay, which is a great day to leave.
How do chemtrails impact our cells?
Okay, well, this is a great question, and it gets into the understanding of size and how that matters. When you see a chemtrail, the reason that you start seeing the sun and it looks a little weird, if you've ever seen, it looks like there's sometimes three suns or 3 points of light. It's because the what's being sprayed in the chemtrails are nanoparticulates, so they're very small in size. The nanoparticulates will be effectively weightless, but not so weightless that they never come down. There's always going to be skyfall. So you're going to be breathing this in at some point. But what you see is the sunlight reflecting off of them. And that's what creates this kind of hazy, weird looking sky. It doesn't look like the skies we grew up in, and then
Oh
we
yeah.
we all know there's something wrong, but we can't necessarily put our fingers on what's wrong with it. Well, what's wrong with it is those particulates are hovering. And then, of course, wherever you see a chemtrail, remember what I said earlier. That's not just for the sake of spraying the sky in these weird patterns. That there's a purpose to the patterns. There's a purpose to where they spray and why they're spraying it. And that purpose is that when they're spraying over populated areas where there are electromagnetic frequency emitting devices that are a web of them, like in a city, you are now able to push the jet stream. You're able to control the weather. And so, what we take people into is understanding what geoengineering really means. Geoengineering, geo means earth, but engineering means war engine. So the entire principle of geoengineering is to turn Mother Earth into a war engine. And that's what this whole study has been. And don't think for a second that they haven't been studying this since World War II, really.
Yeah. Well,
That's when we
Idaho
start
Power
seeing
has
it.
been chemtrailing and seeding clouds for decades and
Right,
decades. Anytime anyone says it's a myth, I just say, go look at their website. It says it right there. And then they'll go do it like it's
right,
happening. And it would actually be a huge story, the kind 60 Minutes used to cover. Why
right.
are mainstream media, and I even did a little research for this show with AI, both are insistent that chemtrails are fiction. They're contrails, ice.
Right. Well, the what's interesting was you go to other countries, they openly admit it. Saudi Arabia openly admits it. China openly admits what they're doing, and why they're doing it. United States openly admits it too, but you got to go into the law first. The 1972 National Weather Modification Reporting Act. We've been doing this under legal pretense since 1972, and I forget the exact code, but I think it's 15 USC something. Anyway, I can send that over to you later, but it's a simple search on it. So when people start saying, "Well, we're not doing this," it's like, "Well, the law says we are. All you have to do is go to the law first." So then why wouldn't CBS 60 Minutes? Why don't we have an expose on this? Because then you have to look at what commercials are being played on those stations and understand that and I term it this, and I know some people don't like it, but this is me. The pharmaceutical industry pays for over 70% of all ad placements on these television programs.
Yeah.
So when
And
you
they morphed
understand that,
with chem companies ever
you
since the Nabisco and
right,
tobacco merger. So yeah,
right.
same
So
same
it's like
company,
so
same ad dollars.
it's basically what we all know. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. Right. And if they were going to do a show like this, it's not so benign that, oh, all we're worried about is losing, revenue. It's more of we are going to dictate to you what you're going to put on your show and what you're not. So we're going to dictate to you that it's contrails and these are conspiracy theorists. And we're not even going to give it any air by even putting anything out or covering it because if the second we do, we create controversy and now we put ourselves in the crosshairs. So the easiest thing they can do, and this is one of their tactics, and it's very smart, when there's something that you are doing that you know is wrong and you've been caught, just don't acknowledge it at all.
Yeah. Deny, deny, deny. They'll say the
You know,
science is settled, moving on, and then we'll talk about Kim Kardashian's newest plunging
right.
neckline or whatever it is. Okay. So what other doctors are coming up with the same results as you?
So far, I haven't seen anyone repeat this test. I've talked with Dr. Lee Merritt about it a little bit. She was super excited about the results. We've talked with Dr. Ed Group, Dr. Jana Schmidt, Dr. Richard Olrey about it. He and consulted a little bit with Morley Robbins. I mean, we have a pretty awesome network that we've developed these last 6 years. And what I tell folks is we see the folks that when we know the folks today that they're better than their images. Like one of the people I love to shout out is Mike Adams. That's a dude that's actually even better than his image. When you meet him and what he's about and what he does behind the scenes for so many people and everything, he's just a good dude.
Where's
You
he out
know,
of?
this is the Health Ranger.
Oh, the Health Ranger. Yeah.
Oh, right, out of Texas.
Are these the
Um,
type of people that are in your book of questions?
there no, in my book of questions, that's more of stories about me, and we're helping people process trauma and things like that. But I'm writing another book this summer called "I Poop Today," and we're gonna talk about some of this stuff, but in a fun way. I feel like it's gotten so heavy, and we're also worried about the future. We have to bring a little lightness into these conversations, so we can have the conversations. Like let's
Well, it's
just talk
actually
about it.
medically very accurate because the Indian culture, they believe in that. That's why there's so many spices and curries and stuff in their food,
Mhm.
is that once a day bowel movement it's almost like we say an apple a day so
Yeah,
that you will poop.
right.
They just do okay, so we don't have to harp on that.
No, no, I'm with you, and it's a great thing. But the book, the title is kind of tongue in cheek to set the tone. But I am going to be talking about bioweapons, and I'm going to be talking about some of these stories I'm sharing with you here. And one of the things that the health ranger did was he got some of the skyfall, and he analyzed it in his lab. He's got some great equipment to test some things out. And what did he find? Aluminum, barium, strontium. But what was the one that was far and away in the highest concentration? It was aluminum.
Wow.
And so when I did my test on the human body, I see where I go with all this stuff is I always then say, okay, well, we have to test the human body. Like when people were talking about, oh, I'm going to shield from EMF. So I was like, okay, well, let's test it and see if it's actually shielding. We I was the guy that proved that shielding doesn't work.
Mm.
That it's a waste of money. That's why that industry costs so much because they're producing products that they know don't work, and then you don't know they don't work, but you spend a lot of money. So what do you think? Oh, I paid a lot of money. It must work. No, what works is grounding. And I've proven that simple $50 multimeter. It's like these are easy things to prove when you understand what should be happening from what people are saying that it's doing. So I did that. I did the sweat test, so we know that's another way to get aluminum out of the
Yeah. Well,
body,
that segues
sweating,
me to my next
right?
section. So you've
Yeah.
been looking at sweat using infrared saunas. Are
Mhm.
all infrared saunas created equally?
In my opinion, no. Just from the standpoint, Steve, of just the quality of the cabinet, the quality of the materials. Um, I've told people, and I definitely teach my students this at the Energetic Health Institute. I can't help you if you're not grounding. Like I want natural medicine to really work and really work for everyone. But I will tell you, we are up against so many factors now
Yeah.
that the thing that tipped the scale was 2020 with those cell phone towers. It just doesn't work the same if you're not grounding.
Expected
And
to
you
double in the next 10 years. Yeah.
expected to double in the next 10 years. And AI data centers are expected to increase just in the next 3 years astronomically as well. So what you start looking at with that is are all grounding mats the same? No. Are all saunas the same? No. But these are key tools for the modern person who seeks to be healthy and not want to have to deal with the cult of Asclepius or their hospitals.
Yeah. Well, like the Indians
Um,
that did a sweat lodge, that's
right.
how they did this. So,
That's
so
what,
not
isn't it
the
cool? Isn't that
subcontinent
cool?
Indians, the American Indians.
But isn't that cool how you start seeing these cultures, they figured out things, and all
Yeah.
we're seeing is that stuff still works. It's just
Yeah.
you got to know how to
Yeah.
do it.
Modern medicine based on Rockefeller's oil is not a good thing. It's obvious. To me at least, and hopefully after people listen to this show, more so to them too. But sweat comes
Right.
from the glands.
Right.
What harm are these chemicals doing as they pass through the glands?
That's a really good question. Let me think about it for a second because it's not something I've really considered. I'm more like get it out and we'll deal with we'll deal with the cleanup of what we
Right.
have to
Well, we
clean
know
up
spike
afterwards.
protein will cause inflammation, and that'll also,
Yeah.
and we know that aluminum will get into the brain and potentially cause autism.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious how these little glands that have a lot of work to do can just be wrecked with this hard metals going through them.
Well, when we're talking about the glands, one of the things that's really interesting about the sweat glands is that they are surrounded by smooth muscle. So it is still sweating is a muscular function to get it out. So what you'll have people who start out and they haven't sweated in a long time, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I sat in the sauna for an hour and no sweat came out." Yeah, well,
Wow.
that's going to happen for some people for a couple of weeks. It's going to take your body getting put into that demanding situation before the muscles can build up the tonicity that they need to be able to perform to do that. So that'd be one encouragement for everyone. Don't give up because the first couple of days you in the sauna you didn't sweat.
It's like
That's
not
your
cleaning
body
out the
will.
lint in your dryer for a long time. You got to do that first, and then you can dry your clothes.
Right, exactly. But what I would say is when we talk about heavy metals, Steve, we are talking about the short circuiting of the body's electricity. And so the most important thing we can do is get those short circuiting metals out, heavy metals out, and replace them with biocompatible minerals that do conduct electricity properly in the body. So you start looking at something like
Copper and silver.
you look at copper, you look at silver, you look at gold. You definitely look at magnesium, you look at manganese. Manganese is going to be super important for your mitochondria and the production of superoxide dismutase, which is an antioxidant that the body makes and is specific for mitochondria.
Zinc.
Zinc, you go with your simples. Iron. I mean, there's things that the body is going to need. And this is what if you took, you know this, Steve? If you took all the minerals in the body, they would, and you just were able to get all the water out and everything and just condense them down. All the minerals in the body at any given time basically fit on the size of a teaspoon to a tablespoon.
Wow.
Okay, that's all that's in the body. So the body doesn't need much, but what it needs, it needs. So if your body is really overrun with aluminum, mercury, lead, these are three of the top heavy metals. If your body's overrun with that, you have to be thinking, well, not only is your body overrun with those metals, but it's also missing companion minerals because they're just not there. That's why the metals are there. They're taking up the space that the minerals should be occupying.
Wow. Yeah, our
And
capacity is only so much.
yeah,
And if it's got the wrong balance, it's a chemical
right,
imbalance. It's a metal imbalance. Okay.
right.
Let's talk about your new membership to the Energetic Health Institute. What's that all about?
Well, one of the cool things that I we would get, we've been getting them for years, is does Dr. Ealy take patients? No, I don't. I take students. And that's a conscious decision on my part because the word patient means he who suffers and endures misfortune. So that's another one of those wonderful gifts from the Rockefellers. So I said, as soon as I learned that, I was like, I'll never take another patient again in my life. But we want students because student is somebody who aspires to know. And this is the beautiful magic within all these words. I have a book coming out this year called The Philosophy of Healing, where we get into all of this stuff and why the world is the way it is. We've traced back some roots. Um, what we also know, though, is not everybody wants to be a doctor. Not everybody wants to be certified as a healer and go and work with people. Some people just want that knowledge for them and the people that they love, and that's great. So what I think we started seeing was a lot of people out there, Steve, thought natural medicine and especially nutrition were super simple. And then they come and learn, wait a minute, this is actually pretty complex, or it can be, and I need help simplifying it. So what we did was we said, let's put together a little membership, low cost, first 30 days free. Come and check it out. Make sure that you like it. And let's make healing easy. So we called it Healing Made Easy. We have a class actually. We have classes every other Tuesday pretty much in the month. We do question and answer sessions. So if it's something I'm not covering yet, you get to ask a question and I'll share with you like, hey, this is how we do it. This is how it breaks down. These are the things you have to do. My strength, Steve, is not just research and testing and all this other stuff. I'm a super nerd. My strength is understanding how to put things together in the proper sequence to optimize what we call healing resonance. And that is the energy of all of these individual therapeutics coming together to create an even greater result for the person who's utilizing them.
Hmm.
And so we teach people how to do that, and we teach people how to do it in a way that's fun and engaging. And where every single time you come in, I do promise you, you will learn something new, something useful, and something that you can use for you and your family to keep yourselves healthy and free in this
Wow, what a
crazy
wonderful
world we live
system.
in.
That's a great way to go. Better than a residency where you're up for 48 hours and that type of thing.
Right.
So I use a crystal because I
Okay.
was made aware a decade ago that aluminum is an antiperspirant, so I didn't want to do that, and I'm glad I
Mhm.
did now that I know more.
Mhm.
But back to your study, you showed that aluminum levels jumped from 281 to 2,958 nanograms per gram in our sweat after
Mhm.
heavy chemical exposures. We talked about that.
Mhm.
How do you
Mhm.
control for variables like dietary aluminum intake, antiperspirant use, or environmental sources other than the aerial spraying? And did you use like baseline sweat collection periods? And how did you rule out contamination during sample handling?
Oh, good, very good questions. The first thing that we did is from diet, we kept everything the same. So the diet that I ate on one day was the same diet I ate on another day. That was, because we were concerned about that because we still didn't know at that point, what if it is fish? So I made sure I was not eating any wild caught fish, anything like that. It was just what did I eat here? Well, let's eat it again. Same thing. And that's the kind of the best you can do for that level of control. In terms of sample contamination, it's kind of simple. They're just plastic collection tubes, empty collection tubes. What we did was the only contamination I was worried about was actually plastic, which we didn't test for, and we couldn't test for because the collection sheet I used under me when I was sweating was made of plastic. So I used the same sheet for both times. So to me, if you're using the same thing, it would have shown up. You know what I mean? So you start just go, stands to reason kind of stuff. But really, that's what it came down to was just control as many of the variables within the method as you can. Make sure that you can eliminate certain things where people go, well, that was just because of this or it was because of that. And so when we were able to do that, it was there. And so and again, if it was only done once, that's something. But I repeated the test, and on the other, and then we also did it with we did some urine samples as well. But where's my other one? Oh, I'm missing my third one. Anyway, on the repeat test, it was 2,791, I believe, nanograms per gram on the after the chemtrail day. So that was the one where I was like, oh, we got something here now.
Yeah, no,
It's,
that's,
you
I mean,
know,
that's undeniable. That's an explosion. I've
mhm.
been told by pilots, military and commercial, all skeptics, which is
Mhm.
interesting to me. Disbursement over large areas is a thing that makes exposure less if it even is there. And that would kind of make sense. I mean, I see these things go
Yeah.
what literally would be 100 miles.
Mhm.
You documented a 10x increase, we just talked about it, in aluminum post-exposure. Did you find a consistent dose response relationship? And I'm not a scientist, but what I think of that is do heavier chemtrail days correlate with proportionally higher metal concentrations directly under the plane's path versus, say, miles away? And have you
Mhm.
tracked how quickly these levels normalize with sweating versus without in time from spray to circulate through the body? And then
Mhm.
lastly, have you ever gone to the airport when they land and say, "Hey, tell me what's in that bottle you just sprayed over my house?"
Right, right. Um, so first, the first thing is no, these are great considerations for future testing, especially to be like, okay, here's the day one after a chemtrail, here's day two after a chemtrail, here's day three with no chemtrail. So you can see the drop and how the body is clearing it, especially with the aid of the sauna to be able to perform the testing. But no, we haven't done that one, something of that style yet. Very interesting. Similarly, distance from, haven't done that one yet either. And that would be, to me, that would be a little bit more creative. And I'm thinking right now, like, how do you develop the methods for that to determine? You'd have to know what the flight patterns are, and you'd have to know distance. You know what I mean? There's a few that one's probably a little more challenging.
Yeah, it'd have to
Um,
be the same pattern every week, and you'd have to call your friend
right,
who's 50 miles away and 100 miles away and say, "What's your
right,
results? What's your results?" Yeah, I mean, it's so
right,
hard with science to establish a causal pattern versus a
right.
correlation. So, but you've come close, and if you have a what was that, 1,000% jump, you're right, you're onto something. And the question
There's
is,
something there, right?
yeah, and the question is like, how far away did it happen? But if they do the next
Right,
day 50 miles to the west, well, this doesn't really matter, does it?
right.
So you described aerosolized metals causing biological short circuiting by
Mhm.
displacing essential minerals. At the cellular level,
Mhm.
what specific mineral sites are aluminum, barium, and cesium? Cesium?
Cesium.
What are they
So
binding to? And are you seeing
here,
evidence of this displacement in lab panels, say like magnesium or zinc depletion concurrent with these exposures?
yeah, so you look at a basic periodic table with and it's arranged electrically for the most part, the way we look at it, not the way that Walter Russell would look at it or something like that. Um, and what you notice is that boron and aluminum are in the same family. So aluminum is going to have the ability to displace boron, but the converse of that is true as well. Boron is going to have the ability to displace aluminum. That one is proven. The next one that I'm going to work on proving and we'll see what happens, is going to be the potassium for cesium. We are also going to be looking at magnesium for barium, in terms of their abilities to displace. We are also know we already have, and this is, I didn't prove this one, but it's long since been proven, that iodine can displace the bromine. So you just kind of go and when you start seeing that pattern, you go and you look at the electrical periodic the table, the periodic table from an electrical perspective. You start saying, well, this is still theory. I'm not going to say it's this, settled science or something like that. But what I am going to
It would be
say is
nice if
that,
we could get there, though,
yeah, well,
because if
I
we
don't
can
think
settle
we'll,
it, we can stop doing it,
well, if
or at
we
least
could
not have an
settle
excuse to
it,
do it anymore.
right. Yeah. What I'd say is just it's interesting to look at this and go back to the body and really gain this incredible appreciation for how incredible we really are. I mean, if you just blink your eyes, Steve, um, we know that in the time it took you to blink your eyes, there were at least 900,000 trillion biochemical events that took place in your body just for the production of energy alone. And I'm probably underestimating that by a factor of 3 to 6, for it. And so when you start, and that's just
Yeah,
energy.
I'm glad that you threw that out there because I looked into you obviously before I had you on here. Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, folks. It's not
Mhm.
as if you just decided you wanted to come out of, John Hopkins and come up with this. So you have a mechanical engineering background from UCLA,
Mhm.
doctorate in naturopathic medicine from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine and Health Sciences, now known as Sanaran University of Health Sciences in Arizona.
Mhm.
2003 to 2007, and you also board certified in holistic nutrition by the NANP, National Association of Nutritional
Uh,
Professionals.
uh, I have been. Let's clarify that because NAMP and I had a falling out.
Oh,
I didn't really like their approach to things like allowing Ozempic into their national conferences and stuff like
oh,
that.
okay.
So I have a tendency of being very outspoken behind the scenes, and I don't make a lot of friends all the time. But I am a certified holistic nutritionist, and I am a board certified holistic nutritionist by the AANWP and not by the NANP any
Okay, but
longer.
once upon a time they thought you were okay. But the
Yeah.
question is, how did mechanical engineering and naturopathy come together in you for this
Mhm.
area of research?
The one good thing about training in engineering and is that you organize thought and you understand how things integrate based upon systems. So you really see the world not from a one to point A to point B, but you really take a look at the whole system and how things kind of one influences another. I spent a lot of time studying after that Chinese medicine. And one of the beautiful things about Chinese medicine and later Ayurveda, one of the beautiful things about these systems is that they see the world from an influencing kind of systematic perspective, not from a very linear Cartesian kind of, what we got have today in modern medicine, that allows for plausible deniability.
Yeah.
They they
They
they see
substituted
it.
cause and effect with plausible deniability.
Right, exactly. And so for the application, one of the first thing I really realized when I came into natural medicine and natural healing was that it is the most disorganized it's the most disorganized great thing in the world. That it was so throw this against the wall, see what sticks, try this over here. I heard my mom use this. It was just, it was like fingernails on a chalkboard for somebody who has an organized mind. So you're not going to be able to survive in it, but you also see where that leads to inefficiency and why things don't work. People chose the right thing, but they didn't use enough of it. They chose the right thing and used enough of it, but didn't understand that they needed to use this other thing to synergize with it. And so there was no order really to it. And my thing coming into it was I knew instantly, for whatever reason, God turned me on, and I was like, you're going to teach this. I knew I was going to teach this, and I knew I wanted to teach this beautiful thing at the highest levels, and prove that it is far better than anything that the Western cult of Asclepius trained doctor is doing. So I took that challenge on, and I accepted that challenge. And I said, let's bring engineering into it from the standpoint of organization of systems and understanding how you integrate and understanding how to create um, harmonic and healing resonance, in what you do.
Yeah.
And that then you start
Immune
learning something.
system, nervous system,
Digestion,
digestive system. Absolutely. Like that's the missing piece, I think,
right?
in Western medicine is they just say prescribe you this, this, and this, and it'll all be fine.
Right. And so the one thing that has been really beautiful now is, for whatever reason, it took me almost 30 years of doing this to get to a place where I feel like I'm competent. All right. And I mean that. Okay. Like I'm really good at what I do because I'm competent at what
Yeah.
I do. You know what I mean? And I can
Yeah.
teach people that competency.
Well, if you're an engineer and the bridge falls down, you're in big trouble. If you're a doctor, you bury your
Ex-
mistakes, right? So,
Exactly. That's brilliant right there. It should be on a t-shirt. So, but the thing that's so important about it, Steve, is that we can't pass on to others what we don't know. So we have to be able to create a system, and that's what energetic health is. It's a system of where all this fits in. And so things move around. It's a dynamic system. As we learn more, things move into other places. And I can tell you right off the top of the bat, the most powerful therapeutic known in human history is fasting. It's There's nothing even remotely close in terms of effectiveness to fasting. But the most powerful overall um, system within all of these systems that are under natural medicine is nutrition. And so it helps me understand why the Rockefellers cut nutrition out of everything. It helps me understand why people who know nutrition are so successful at what they do, and why people who don't know nutrition aren't. It's the foundational teaching of every natural therapeutic. If you don't have nutrition, I don't care if you're a body worker, I don't care if you're an acupuncturist, I don't care if you're a yoga teacher, I don't care. I don't care. If you don't know nutrition, you are missing the most important aspect of a natural healing education. And so that's where I came in. Let's start there. And now let's build this whole thing out so the right way so that we can reconnect. And what I've been so honored to find out is what we're teaching is validated by the folks that came before us, the folks that were before the Flexner Report in 1910. That what we're teaching is what they were teaching, but at a whole new level, because we do get to take from what has been gained and what has been shared by the cult of Asclepius and in the growth of understanding just the electron transport chain and mitochondria alone. I mean, all that's happened since really the early 1940s. We've learned so much. So we're able to take that, but look at it from a natural perspective and look at it not from a perspective of how can I make money from this, but how can I help someone that needs help? And
mm,
that to me is the purity of what it's supposed to be about anyway.
ancient wisdom's new again. That's fantastic. Okay, last question. I know you have to go and you've been generous with your time. I think we're in overtime. UCLA, I mentioned that you went there, and there's a reason
Mhm.
because I'm a Trojan, so I'm biased. But obviously, in the University of California system, is
Right.
UCLA is there, and the
Yeah.
University of California researchers with grants had them all terminated by the National Institute of Health by President Donald Trump. But his when his administration won to have them, I'm sorry, they had them won to have them restored in federal court last September. So the Trump
Okay.
administration alleging UCLA was practicing anti-Semitism and discrimination against women athletes. I don't want to know about that, but any opinion on NIH grants, because it's basically all the money in the world, and especially to UCLA, when I'm sure you struggle just to get this information out there because they're not your friends.
Yeah. I can share with you what I teach my students. Whenever you review a supposed peer-reviewed paper that survived peer review, that process, the first thing that I teach my students to do is look at that paper and look at it and say they are lying. They are lying until proven otherwise. It is their duty to prove to you as you're reading through their paper that they are not lying. But you start always with the assumption that they are lying. It's just Nature Journal has been taken over. All of these things that we were supposed to be able to trust are just, they're all compromised. The first thing that I teach students to go and look at is the funding statement. So I don't care about the abstract. I don't care about methods. I care about the funding statement and conflicts of interest. That's what I go, and that's usually at the bottom of all peer-reviewed papers, if it's even in there sometimes. Once I'm satisfied that there are no conflicts of interest, and best of all peer-reviewed papers are the ones that had no funding for them, then I can go and start reading, and I know what I'm getting myself into as a reader. All right. So the first thing, that's the basics nowadays for it. When I look at the NIH as a funding partner, I get very conflicted because I've read studies that are positive, and I've read many more studies that are horrific for us. And it lets you know that the NIH is funding things like the research into genetically modified mosquitoes and ticks. It lets you know that the NIH is also allocates a very tiny percentage of its budget towards natural medicine. But you have to understand why they allocate a very small portion towards natural medicine. It's not so that natural medicine can emerge at some point. It's so that they can follow in the footsteps of Rockefeller and Carnegie, who spent a lot of money on studying nutrition before they ultimately killed it, because they wanted to know how nutrition could actually help prevent the product that they were bringing to market from being successful.
Getting rid of the
So
competition, so to speak.
it's learning your enemy so you can crush your enemy. That's why there's a little bit of money there. And that's why we see things like homeopathy coming under attack, glutathione coming under attack by the FDA. Because
Ivermectin, Tylenol, yeah,
nicotine, right? Like
nicotine, yeah.
all these things coming under attack because they've studied how those things can prevent them from making money on the thing that they want people consuming.
Okay, last question. One more. Can I get one more in?
Yeah, go for it.
How come if they spray and it's harmful, the birds haven't disappeared?
Well, there's a few things you gotta keep in mind. Who says the birds haven't disappeared?
I just saw
Who
a heron
says?
fly by as I got that
Right,
question in my mind, so I
right,
wondered,
right,
are you
right.
saying it's a drone?
No, what I'm saying is you have to look at the food sources. What do we know has fallen off a cliff in the last 10 years alone?
Bees.
Bee populations, and with that, all kinds of bug populations. You remember when you used to drive across country and every 5 feet you'd have to clean your windshield
Yeah.
because there's bugs everywhere? You talk to anyone that's into the geoengineering, you can go and talk to somebody like Nikki Florio with Bee Heroic, BEE Heroic, and what she's going to tell you is there are no more bugs. Compared to what we had 10 years ago, there are no more bugs. The bugs are dying. What happens next? If the bugs are the fuel source for the birds, what happens next? Decline in population. And when the population declines, ultimately, what do you see? You're seeing a bird that might be 5, 6, 7 years old. You haven't seen give it 10 years. And then what are you going to see? That heron ain't flying in front of your window anymore because it didn't have the fuel it needed to reproduce. Okay.
Oh boy.
And
Okay.
so
Wouldn't
these,
get it.
yeah,
Yeah. I wish we had
yeah.
more
So
time to
it's
talk
a,
about reproduction
yeah,
and all this, but
yeah.
yeah. Dr. Early, thank you. Thank you for your time, for what you're doing. You're like the only person doing it. Tell our listeners where they can go to find out more, find you, social media, anything, books.
We got some great stuff out there. I'd say just simply go to energetichealthinstitute.org. You can see all of our educational experiences. We have free gifts on there for every person. We have free 30-day membership to the Healing Made Easy, for example. You can use and put in promo code Heartland, and you will be able to save 30% on that, which is awesome. And whether you do an annual or a monthly, you still save the same percentage. And we practice something called community commerce. So that means that Steve gets a little thank you for doing that as well. And that's how it's supposed to work. us creating the world that we want to live in. We have our books on the site, we have our certifications on the site, our independent study courses, and we even have our doctorate program that we're launching in the fall of this year, 2026. So we're all about education. Some people put out supplements, and I love them for doing it, like Dr. Ed Group with Global Healing, love them, right? Love that they're doing it, but you don't need me to make a supplement. You need me to help you understand how to use the supplement, how to use these things, how to get the most out of them so that you can avoid these landmines that are all around us now. And that's where my strength is. I can show you how to make all of this stuff we call natural healing work for you and everybody you love, and you can live truly free because you don't have to go into a cult of Asclepius hospital. So go to energetichealthinstitute.org, check us out. Get some free stuff over there, and make sure when you decide to join us for the Healing Made Easy membership, make sure you put in promo code Heartland and save some money. We want you to have that knowledge for you and everybody you love.
That's very generous of you. Thank you very much. And my listeners appreciate that very much. So hang on, everybody. I will be right back.
Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.
Thanks for coming back. As always, this was for entertainment purposes only and education. Consult a trained physician before starting any health regimen. I am not a doctor, and I do not play one on a podcast. That is it for this episode. Thank you, Dr. Ealy. For skeptics still out there, Dr. Ealy points to existing NIH literature showing that aluminum exposure is associated with neurological conditions, including Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis. He argues that the levels he observed in sweat samples includes a massive toxic burden that could impair immune function, disrupt mineral balance, and interfere with the body's electrical signaling. Promo code Heartland. How cool is that? This is goodbye for now. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and pass it around to those who might be interested. We only grow with your help and still ad-free. Peace in our time and glory to God.
John, I love you. I'm ever so fond of you. Will you wait for me till I am heavenly? Oh, there's much more to do. But I love you. Oh, you're tender. Your name's a whisper. I let tears fall like rain, apple size they were all over. And through all of those times when you could have died, this is what you find. There's life outside your mother's garden. There's life beyond your wildest dreams. There hasn't been any explosion. We're not spinning like Dorothy.
It's a long way to Nashville from that Napa Valley vine. Put me on a road less traveled. Lord, now I know why. God knew I'd get there in His perfect time.
Heartland Journal Podcast is the media property of heartlandjournal.com, where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.
Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee. Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.